This episode of Savvy and Sage podcast is sponsored by Color Street. These are 100% real nail polish strips made in the USA that don't require any dry time. Simply start with clean, dry nails, tear off the strip and gauge the proper size. Peel off the plastic front and backing and align with the base of your nail. Smooth and then file away any excess and voila, no drying needed. Shop my link in the description below. Hello and welcome back to Savvy and Sage podcast. I am your host, Savvy, and I am joined today by my co-host, Sage. How are you today, Sage?
I am doing great.
I am so glad to hear you're doing great because today we have a very wonderful show. We are talking relationships today on our show. Being that Valentine's Day is right around the corner, it is only fitting that we talk about relationships on the show. So let's just dig right in. We know that right now our world has basically been turned upside down with the pandemic. There's been a ton of, job loss and a lot more stress than ever before. So even with all the unpredictable times that are going on, there are still a lot of challenges between people trying to get together for a little romance. So we are encouraging that. Generally speaking, when it comes to basic heterosexual relationships, men and women are from opposite poles when it comes to intimacy. We tend to have crazy, nonsensical expectations from each other when we are young and in our teenage years. Then after our 20s and 30s, the expectations of what should or shouldn't happen when couples get together can still create a testy exchange of confusion. So hopefully we can enlighten you with some suggestions for creating a more harmonious as well as exciting time when celebrating Valentine's Day. So let's jump right in on this subject. Sage, I know you have the wisdom, being as you are Sage. Jump in on this subject about relationships, intimacy, and how people are now choosing to celebrate Valentine's during this pandemic.
Well, a lot of celebrations, just like Valentine's Day, is going to be using Zoom and Zoom meetings. This is what I hear, this is what I see. But for those who are still in the home together and kind of have been quarantined under protest, there are still ways to sort of lighten that load of having to be on top of each other. I hear a lot of that, just because I watch everything, that. But really what people need to do, and I've had to do this myself from time to time, just take a break from the mundane. Just go ahead and let your hair down, so to speak, for some special time to sort of reconnect on a different level. Maybe even in a fantastical way. I mean, maybe you have a different look or something because everybody needs a little spark. Right now, these times are just really, really, there's so much more pressure on everybody. And one thing I was thinking too was, there's a lot of pressure too. There's been a lot of pressure on men. Well, there's a lot of pressure on women too, but
right.
Maybe a time to just there's a lot of good guys out there and give the men a break and helping them, especially in terms of communicating, and to just have couples. Actually, what I'm thinking of right now, Savannah, is like I've heard a lot about people trying to reconnect or date online or use Tinder or some of those other apps, and to actually meet somebody.
Right.
And usually the guy, if he's reaching out, is feeling very nervous. So this might be a time for the females to just be a little more compassionate for their side. Am I putting this in the right conjecture? This is just what I'm observing. I'm just saying that sometimes guys are feeling like not only do they have the pressure to try to, they want to meet somebody, but they can't meet them face to face, and so they're trying to be extra careful in what they say or text online. I was reading an article about that, and maybe women can say, hey, well, let's just be friends. Let's just talk about what we have in common and, take the pressure off of romance, because the romance will come.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, a lot of people, I think, especially nowadays when they're trying to find ways to meet people during a pandemic, because honestly, when you can't even connect to those that you love, it's even harder to connect to perfect strangers. But I think a lot of people have been turning to, like you talked about Tinder. I think, I guess Match.com, from what I hear, now has a way of like a video chat. Like they're trying to make ways of making it a little more personable, where you can meet people and chat with them almost through like a FaceTime or like a Zoom call, where you can get to know people through technology, which is great. But I can understand where guys would have that initial intimidation of trying to approach a woman on those platforms, especially nowadays with the pandemic. I mean, that's got to add an extra layer of difficulty in approaching someone cold, basically.
Yes, exactly. So the first thing really with any kind of relationship, whether it's a work relationship or, for example, I've met some new relatives I didn't even know on 23andMe, but that, I mean, there's a lot of times when you might not be in the comfort zone. But the first thing for any relationship is to establish a rapport of things that you might have in common. That is the first step, because then you kind of forget maybe that it shouldn't be like cat and mouse. So establish a rapport. Find out what you have in common, even if it's just maybe the same movies that you like, or places that you've traveled to, or restaurants that you've gone to. Just keep it light and simple. Um, and then, of course, we're talking about meeting people right now, not so much in the actual relationship. And always be a good listener. That's the one thing that people have lost that art somewhat, basically because we're all a little bit ADD with all these devices, but being a good listener. And then establishing a level of trust and openness. When it comes down to it, people need to be intimate in conversation before they can feel relaxed enough to be intimate in bed, if it gets to that point. And just realize that we're all in the same boat. Everybody's like just on pins and needles, because nobody knows what it's going to be like even the next month or two with
And
this COVID.
absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that, because, we are all in the same boat. We are all in this together. And that made me want to do a little digging and check in with a very dear friend of mine that I have had for many of years. Many of years. Those of you that know me know that for a very long time, it was myself and my dear friend Jessica. And so I actually had a chance to catch up with her and kind of chat with her about what it's like to be not only in a fairly new marriage during this pandemic time, but also what it's like to be in a new family. She's starting a new family, has a young daughter. So I got a chance to catch up with her and interview her. I want to play that interview for you, Sage. I want to get your input on what she had to say and the advice she gave about dealing with and being in a relationship during the pandemic. So let me play that for you real quick now. So you're married. You've been married for a little over, what is it, 2 years now or 3?
2 years, yeah,
2. So going from married life regular to married life during the pandemic, what do you feel has changed in your marriage? Like communication, romantically, intimacy wise, like what things have been different for you, negative or positive?
So I'll start with a positive. Now that we've gone through so much stuff together during this pandemic, it is ultimately bringing us closer together and making us like really take a minute and own and realize where we honestly could do some growth. So that was a good thing, but there was definitely a storm before that. I got furloughed, he got furloughed, and we both had to really look at who each other, not necessarily has changed to be, but like who we really are. Like, you know what I mean? Everything else was gone, stripped away. So it's just you and that person that you love, or me and my partner. And we had to really take a step back and realize, hey, listen, some of the things that you do, I kind of passed over. I didn't realize that you did this, or I didn't realize you did that. When you're spending like all day, every day with someone, you just see them in a different way.
Absolutely. That's so true. So with that being said, with the changes that you saw happening in your relationship, how did that affect you and him and your family unit? Because I know you have a young daughter and, you know, a dog, and, you know, you're a family. So how did that affect your family as a whole?
It made us close, like earlier, it made us further apart at first, but then closer together. Like, he was frustrated, I was frustrated. We have this daughter who is energetic and is getting to an age where she knows exactly what she wants, exactly how she wants it. Mm-hmm. So that's pulling us both in different ways. And then we had other exterior stressors, like where we were living, we were in between places. So it was just difficult as a family. We were just really pushing through. But now that we're in this situation, we're more so like I said, it came with like us fixing us first so we can do it better.
So you would say that in the end, the positives, you've taken probably more positives out of the pandemic being in a relationship than you have negatives.
Oh, definitely. Because and I feel like even for people whose outcome might not be, and I'm not saying this is an outcome because they still have that, but like for other people who may be facing like separations or divorces, even in that realm, like you learn so much about, if you're able to take a moment and really look at yourself, you're able to learn so much about yourself, because not only are you spending time with your partner, you're spending time with yourself. So if it went good or bad, I don't necessarily feel like it was negative. I think this was something that relationships needed.
Oh, that's a really
sort some things out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that that's very true as well. Okay, so for the last note, give me your best advice for couples struggling through the pandemic right now. Maybe they're quarantined together, maybe they're sick of each other, maybe they need a fresh date idea. I don't know. Give us a positive.
Find some good some good activities or some fun activities that the two of you can do. If you have kids, still get a sitter, do whatever you need to do. If you don't have a sitter, bring your kid on something that's super fun that you guys can do as a unit. If you're dating in a relationship, no matter where you are on the relationship spectrum, do something together that is not in the house. Like put your mask on and protect yourself from all the highs and lows of the pandemic. But you have to go do something, because if you don't, you guys will get sick of each other, and problems that aren't really problems or that are other people's problems that just become problems. I would also say go to therapy. Therapy. Many cultures do not really take advantage of therapy and mental health, and you can't be right for someone else until you get right for you. And
I know that's right. I know that's right.
Positive vibe I can give everybody else.
Yeah, that's a real note right there. Well, thank you, Jessica, so much for weighing in on your opinion on this matter, and thank you for coming on the show. Yes, we will have you back again very, very soon. Thank you, and happy Valentine's Day to you and your loved ones.
Thank you. You too. Okay, bye, girl.
All right, we just heard from my friend Jessica. Great interview. What did you think about that, Sage?
I was really impressed with her wisdom from being a young mom. I mean, it turns your whole life upside down when you have a child, and then in a new marriage, because you barely get to know each other, and then here comes this other person. And then I heard her say she also has a dog, and believe it or not, a dog is like a child too. Mm-hmm. So now she's got a house with 4 people, and a lot of, it just so happens, just the way human nature is, women usually are taking on the full load of caring for everyone, because sometimes a man just doesn't always feel as comfortable about how to manage the baby, and the baby usually wants the mom. Anyway, she sounded like she's done a lot of thinking and a lot of soul searching, and I liked very much that she said therapy, because you really need a third or fourth or fifth person to discuss things that is not going to judge you, but give you some tools to be able to manage that. She should be able to write a book in a couple of years, I think.
Absolutely. And you know, you're so right. And Jessica's so right about the therapy and the mental health, and that not being a topic and not being a discussion even in some cultures. That's very true. And it's something that I think more and more people are trying to open up discussion about therapy and about mental health issues when it comes to a relationship and couples, because mental health and those things are going to, if they affect you, then they're going to affect those around you that love you and your loved ones. So it's very important. I also I like the fact that she said that it wasn't easy at first. I like how she said that they started off hitting a few rough patches, that they had, you know, some issues in the beginning that they had to really work on and work out. And I like that she said, you know, the fact that unfortunately both of them lost their jobs and they were furloughed, that even though that happened, it was a good thing in the end, because ultimately it forced them to have to look at each other and look at themselves and say, you know, what parts of this marriage or what parts of this relationship aren't working for you, what parts aren't working for you, and how can we make this better? And basically it would behoove them to make it better because they're going to be stuck with each other.
Yes. And the baby.
Absolutely.
So the baby puts in a whole different dimension, you know, and but it's like you have to grow up all of a sudden. You really do when you have a child coming into the marriage. And sometimes for the woman, the romance part kind of shuts down. Part of that is due to the hormone changes too. There's a lot of hormones shifting around when you have a child. And the one thing, I've had two, and one thing I remember was I told my mother, nobody said I wasn't going to get any sleep, you know, and that also can make you feel very, very cranky. I hope the two of them have a really nice Valentine's Day, and can, in spite of the pressure and everything, that they can put all that aside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like so many other young couples and even older couples, because that definitely brings it just changes. You know, when it's just the man and the woman, or any couple, you know, two men, two women, whatever. When you have a singular couple without the distraction of children or someone else that you have to care for, then you can just focus on each other, and you can be really spontaneous when it's just the two of you.
Oh, absolutely.
But you know, you have to really do a lot of planning. You have to plan to be spontaneous, if that makes sense.
That is so true. Absolutely, that is so true. And I agree with you. You know, one of the big things when it comes to relationships that I really harp on, and maybe I'm biased because it so happens to be in my life work, I don't know, but one of the biggest things for me when it comes to relationships is communication. And I mean, I'm sure that I'm a broken record because I know everyone probably says that, but it's just something that we can't talk about it enough. Communication is the key. You know, communication has been the downfall and the uprising of so many different relationships. You can almost think of the smallest problem to the largest problem, and I bet you somewhere in the issue it revolves around communication to some extent. So what can we do to better open up ways of communication between one another? What are ways in which we can improve talking to one another?
Well, if we're talking about, you know, just first meeting each other, like I mentioned before, I'll just sum that up, is that men shouldn't sweat so much talking to women. Women don't really have as much a problem with, I know I never did, but then I've never met a stranger, but women, you know, talking to a guy, sometimes you might just ask him a question, you know, or just be interested, but men seem to really go through a lot. They usually, we'll get into the other one real quickly to the other part of your question, but like I have observed, I've read, studied, you know, and lived and stuff, that sometimes the very first visual attraction that a man has, he wants to start, you know, just based on the what he sees, he will want to talk to one, but he's all nervous because really he's already got these romantic thoughts in his head. But if people let down, those expectations, which is kind of hard to do, but that's part of being mature and growing up, then you can have the basis of getting to know somebody, and you might find out really you don't have anything in common, or she might have great taste in clothes and have a really cute smile, but really and truly it's not worth pursuing because there's nothing else there that makes sense for a relationship, and people need to be much more discerning. That's one thing. Now, if you have a long-term relationship, and that little spark seems to be kind of fading away, then literally you have some work to do. You really do. You have to kind of do a little soul searching and just go ahead and do something very, very spontaneous, such as, just planning a dinner party for the two of you at home. And if there's kids involved, give them something to do. It does require more commitment. It does require some work, but it will pay off. And there might be something you'll find out about your partner 10 years or 4 years or 5 years that you didn't even realize just by opening the door and letting yourself be vulnerable to him or to her.
Absolutely. And that's great advice. And I think that's great advice for couples of any age or any stature, really, honestly. And another suggestion, and this is something that you actually brought up, is to shut off devices. Turn off the news or the TV, turn off your devices, maybe throw on light music or something like that, and be able to use just your your ambiance and your surroundings to create a little bit of a romantic setting, and use that as a chance to communicate and talk about things with your partner, whether that be romantic things. I mean, I think people get wrapped up in, talking about the kids, talking about the bills, talking about so many, things that are just mundane or day-to-day things that we forget, it's okay to talk about our relationship, talk about our own intimacy with the other person, talk about romantic things, and it helps to keep that kind of passion between one another, to connect on a level that is different than just your everyday communication that you're like, oh, I communicate. I talk to my husband every day. It's like, yeah, about the kids, soccer practice, the bills, the pandemic, but pull yourself away from those things and connect with your partner on a more intimate level from time to time. And I think that would really help a lot of people.
That is true. And one thing to add is humor.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we sort of, it's so funny. I can recall, and I'm sure you can too, sometimes you might, because I was, married for a while. And then it's funny because you might feel kind of, just dull. Then you go out and maybe just something funny happens at, let's say you're going to the store and then you just talk to somebody and all of a sudden you don't even know who they are. I'm not talking about relationships, but all of a sudden you'll start laughing and they'll laugh and you don't really know them, but it's just a little spontaneous moment. Mm-hmm. I've had that happen many times, and I'm thinking, gosh, I wish I had that same kind of energy with my partner, where we could just kind of be light and fun. Mm-hmm. And then when I would think about it more, it's because, well, part of it is, like you say, it's a lot of mundane things. But here's some things that I do now that I have another partner, is that, I'm divorced like millions of other people, but sometimes I'll just change something up. I know it sounds simplistic, but it makes a big difference. Like I might do my hair different, or put on something that he's never seen before, or new earrings. As corny as that sounds, I'm telling you, it changes everything in their eyes. And the same thing for him. I've said, why do you always wear the same old? Put something else on. Let me see you in a different light.
Yeah.
And, it's almost like little fantasy things. But believe it or not, even in some of the therapy sessions that I've been to, and this was several years ago, that was actually encouraged. Just wear something different, even if it's just a little bit off from what you're used to, because you become a little bit different too. Mm-hmm. And then you start assuming a whole different mindset, like, hey, I don't have to be this stodgy, work all day and then take care of the kids and then do the dishes. I mean, that's going to drive anybody to the point of, I don't care about anything but getting to bed and having a nice shower.
Right.
So that I would really, really impress on the listeners. Go ahead, step out. Don't feel like, don't be uncomfortable about maybe wearing something different, or even asking your partner to, change his or her whole style, just so that you can kind of start all over again, being excited about each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are great ideas. And you can never go wrong with trying something new. If it's broke, you can fix it. Don't worry.
Well, I guess the last thing that I'm thinking of is people getting, all people, we're talking adults basically. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, not just on Valentine's Day, but every day. If you have any kind of a spiritual leaning, just be thinking that, this whole, everybody is in this all over the world, this pandemic. It has really suppressed a lot of joy, because there's a lot of burdens that people are bearing. Unfortunately, many women are bearing more of the burdens because some of them have lost jobs, and then on top of that, they're having to teach their kids. We're talking single women, and those poor women don't have much romance as it is. But my heart goes out to them. But for those who are still intact, with their families and everything, learn to get to a level of peace and tranquility, and unfortunately you will have to work at that. And then when you get beyond that to where you feel like, okay, I'm just going to take time out just to have a good laugh and watch something kind of exciting or romantic, then your whole demeanor will change, and it will change you so that you're a better partner with everybody else, better parent. In other words, let loose every now and then.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's very important for people to let loose more now than ever before, because I think we can all agree that these are unprecedented times. So, it deserves an unprecedented reaction from us, I think. That's how I'm going to put it anyway.
No, that's well put.
Thank you so much for joining us on our show today. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like and bell button to be notified for more videos. Thanks, guys. Savvy and Sage podcast is being brought to you by The Rise and Fall of the Attorney's Briefs by author Jules K. Benjamin. This is a romantic read perfect for Valentine's Day. This book follows a hot young attorney as he goes from a ladies' man to a lascivious sexual opportunist. This book will keep you wanting more. It's got twists, it's got turns. It's a great, easy read. Literally, I read this book, I think, in like a weekend because I could not put it down. It was so good. Make sure you all check this out. It is available right now on Amazon and Kindle. Perfect for Valentine's Day, especially if you're a single person enjoying Valentine's Day by yourself. This is what's going to get you through. Okay, so trust me on this. Also, I want to send a special shout out to Jules K. Benjamin, the author of this book. She's hooked me up with the limited edition Rise and Fall of the Attorney's Briefs mug, and it has the hashtag RAFOTAB, which is the Rise and Fall of the Attorney's Briefs, on the back. And as you can see, I've been enjoying my tea today. So make sure you all check this out. These items are available on her website, www.juleskbenjamin.com. You can get the book, and you can also check out the mug and some additional items themed for Valentine's Day, sealed with a little kiss. So make sure you check those out. we have a Valentine's Day giveaway going on right now. We've teamed up with Jules K. Benjamin and the Rise and Fall of the Attorney's Briefs to bring you a Valentine's Day kiss box. It's got a ton of just free goodies in there, including the Rise and Fall of the Attorney's Briefs mug. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video in order to be entered to win.